Hey guys, I'm the 50s Kid. In this video, we're going to be reviewing Milwaukee's new mid-torque impact gun and their brand new high-torque impact gun. So let's get started. So Milwaukee kindly sent me out both of these tools to review on my channel. The mid-torque is going to be the 2861 and it's -22 for the kit or -20 for the tool itself. The high-torque impact gun is the 2767 and then again, -22 for the kit, -20 for the tool by itself. They both come with chargers and they both come with two battery packs. They're 5.0 amp hour battery packs. Let me tell you something. They are more than sufficient to last you. I mean, this is the brand new version of the high torque impact gun. I already owned the old version of the high torque impact gun, and I never went through that battery. You know, I did car after car, lug nuts and suspensions, so on and so forth. I probably had to charge that battery 3 times in the last, I don't know, year and a half or more that I owned it. It's just that the batteries last forever. Of course, if you're a professional automotive technician and you're using this every day, then you're going to be charging it more often. But even then, just more than enough battery capacity to last you. Now, as you can see, there's a substantial size difference between the high torque and the mid torque impact. Now, the high torque impact is going to have 1,400 foot-pounds of nut busting torque, or I believe 1,100 foot-pounds of working torque. And the mid torque is going to have 600 foot-pounds of nut busting torque and 450 foot-pounds of working torque. I concentrate more on the working torque numbers than the nut busting torque numbers, but I do have to tell you that the high torque impact gun is a complete replacement for a 1/2-inch pneumatic gun. You're not going to need any pneumatic tools if you already own them. This is a complete replacement, but I'm especially interested in the mid torque as just a more usable version of the high torque, because the problem with the high torque, the only downside to it is gonna be the weight. The weight of this thing is pretty substantial, and it does fatigue you if you're using this a lot. So that's why I'm especially excited about the mid torque. The mid torque is it's substantially lighter, and I feel like it's not going to fatigue me as much. Now, I don't know that in practice. I haven't used it all day, but you know, I know enough at this point to kind of be able to tell this. Now, I want to show you the size of the old high torque impact wrench in comparison to the new one. You can see the new one is substantially shorter. It's also a little bit bigger or rounder around the side. So it feels just kind of like they squeezed, you know, they squeezed all of the metal to be just, you know, in a little bit of a shorter, squatter mass. The real question is this any heavier? Is it any lighter? Let's compare the weight on the two. So the old high torque weighing in at about 7.49 pounds. Let's call that 7.5 pounds. The new high torque, it's about 7.62 pounds. So it is actually slightly heavier. Of course, I have this little hook on this side. I don't think that makes very much of a substantial difference. Now, the battery packs are different. This is a 5.0 amp hour versus a 4.0 amp hour on the old one. So I think it's worth just weighing the tool by itself. See if we can get an accurate weight here. That's about 6.02 pounds. Let's call it 6 pounds. This one will stand up because it doesn't have the thing on the side. That was about 5.9 pounds. So as you can see, a little bit more weight in the new one, but the new one has substantially more power to it. This one had 1,000 foot-pounds of nut busting torque, and I believe 750 of actual working torque. So they went from 750 on the old one to 1,100 on the new one. So that is really cool. Now, I did take both of the new high torque and the new mid torque to the junkyard today, and I tested them out. You'll see that footage in just a second, but I want to show that this was just in my bag for a couple of hours, you know, scratching up against impact sockets and whatnot. You can see it's already a little scratch here because this is just painted on. So you might want to consider getting one of these rubber overmolded boots to protect the tool. I planned to get one for this. I just, you know, didn't have a chance to. This was my old one. My old one was protected by a boot for a long time. You can see that, you know, there's nothing scratched up about it at all. Just a little bit of dirt in here, probably from before I even got the boot. I'm not upset at all about my tools being a little scratched or even dirty at this point. I wanted them to be dirty. I wanted them to be a little used. Beware of tool reviews, where the guy has a brand new shiny impact and it looks like he hasn't even used it yet. Let's go ahead and weigh the mid-torque. Let's just get a number on that. Let's take the boot top just for, to be fair. That one is 5.38 pounds, a little over 5.38. This one again was 7.62, so over 2 pounds difference. Now to contrast the mid-torque, I want to weigh the 3/8 impact that I've owned forever and ever. Again, this does have a 2.0 battery on it. I think in fairness we should shove, one of the new 5.0 batteries on it. So the 3/8 version, the one that has 200 foot-pounds that I've owned forever, 4.12 with this big battery pack on it. Again, this was 5.38, only a little more than a pound more. You can make this substantially lighter if you just put on the non-extended capacity battery pack on it. In fact, we can do that. See, this is probably what I would work with it as, with one of these shorter capacity batteries. Yeah, you can feel the weight difference. I don't know if you can tell, but weight difference kind of really matters to me, because as you're using this tool continuously, it fatigues you. It kind of starts to wear on you. So weight is a serious consideration when you're using these tools. If you're using the big one, the high torque, and you're just doing 5 lug nuts at a time, taking that, putting it down, taking off a tire, you can kind of work with that. But when this really starts to fatigue you is if you're holding this up, you're holding it high in the air above your head. If you're underneath a car, you're using it on stuff, you're using it on suspension components or something, it gets heavy really, really fast. So take that into consideration, This one is going to be substantially slower than this one as well. This one has 1,750 RPMs a second. This one has 2,100 RPMs a second. So that's a substantial difference. Usually, when I've been using the old high torque impact, one of the things that's kind of bothered me the most is when I'm taking off wheel lug nuts. It's slower. It takes forever because it spins slower. I've always wanted to use my older 3/8 just because it spins so fast and it moves so quickly. Speed is a really important consideration for me. I don't know if it is for you, but it is for me. Now, these both have 3 speed modes. You can change to a slower speed mode. And it actually has lesser power. I don't know why anyone would do this. I don't know if anyone actually does do this. I keep it at full bore the whole time because it is a variable speed trigger. And even when it's on full bore, I have control of the tool at this point. You eventually learn these tools. You learn when you are going a little too long on a fastener and you're about to strip it off or do something like that. You just kind of know. You know from the sound of the impact. You know from how many impacts you can sort of hear. It's almost it's just something you sort of learn. Now this one has a light down below, pretty bright light as well. This one has a light up above. Both lights are fine. Both lights work. I feel like this light is a little bit stronger. The protective boot does not come with it, so you're going to need to purchase that separately. I don't know that there's anything more I can say about these tools here in my workshop. Let's go out into the real world. Let's test these on some real cars. Let's go to my favorite place in the world, the junkyard. So we've got a 94 Prelude here. I think it's got the big 2.2 in it. So, of course, the mid-torque can do lug nuts. Now these were definitely banged on by a half-inch pneumatic. That's what they do here in the junkyard. They just go hog wild until, they can't even, until they stop basically. So, but this thing handles it no problem. Let's see if the mid-torque can handle a wheel lock nut. Took a little bit, but it could do it. Okay, let's see if the mid-torque can handle a Honda crank bolt, which I doubt it will be able to do, but let's see. Wow, that was pretty impressive. So we got a 91 Civic here with the big 1.5 in it. Okay, we got the mid torque trying to do a wheel lock nut. Not a problem for the mid torque. So let's try this smaller Honda crank bolt. So that one's on there real tight. Now let's try the Miracle Worker, the new high torque 2767, 1400 foot-pounds. Not even a problem. Here we've got a Mark IV Jetta, it's a 2.0. Let's see if the mid torque can do a wheel lock nut. So that takes quite a bit. This is because I'm not unstaking the nuts first. I didn't bring a punch in with me, but as you can see, oh, this one actually probably wasn't staked. This one was just sort of a big nylon lock nut. It got it off eventually, but it struggled with it. It took quite a while. So you can see where, you know, the mid torque has its limitations. It comes with the limitation is really speed. You know, if you want to get stuff like this off really quickly without any problems, you want to go with the high torque. Now, of course, the high torque can do wheel lug nuts. Not a problem, but you see how it's a little slower. Not slower to actually get the bolt off. Or I mean, you know, slower to get the bolt loose, but it's slower to actually unscrew the bolt. You got to run it a few more times on each bolt, or just an extra second on each bolt. And you know, that just that little speed deficit kind of it adds up when you're doing all four wheels. So that's something to consider. This is a 92 Accord. Let's do another Honda crank bolt with the mid torque. Pretty cool. This is a 2000 Honda V6, probably a 3.2 liter. Now, this is the really hard Honda crank bolt to get out, so let's try it with the mid torque. Yeah, that's not gonna do it. So that's where the mid torque is not gonna be able to do it. Now let's pull out the Miracle Worker, the high torque. No effort at all. Let's try the mid torque on this wheel lock nut. And it did it. Did it without any problems. This is an 04 BMW with a 2.5 engine. Let's see if the mid torque can do a crank bolt. Too much to ask. So now let's see if the high torque can do it. No problems. You guys saw those results. The mid torque is a very impressive tool. It could actually get out a lot of wheel lock nuts. It got off every wheel lock nut that we actually threw at it. That first one, it took quite a little while, and that's because that first one was staked. I think if I was unstaking those wheel lock nuts, they would have come off a little bit easier. But in the real world, I think basically the mid torque can handle any wheel lock nut you throw at it. It's a different story when it comes to crank bolts. Crank bolts are, so the reason I chose these two fasteners is because these are going to be the tightest fasteners that you're going to take off on a vehicle usually. I didn't test this on any suspension components because I know that if it can do wheel lock nuts, it's going to do any suspension component you throw at it. It's going to do, you know, it's going to do brake caliper bolts. It's going to do, you know, bushing bolts and just every other suspension component you throw at it. Usually wheel lock nuts are going to be torqued at around 150 to 200 foot-pounds, which is pretty tight. And crank bolts are usually going to be anywhere between 200 to 400 foot-pounds. I sort of started with the easier ones and I built up to the really hard ones. The V6 Honda, that's one of the most notoriously difficult to remove, but you saw that the BMW crank bolt was just the same. It was also really difficult to remove. Now, for Honda crank bolts, they actually sell a special 19mm socket that's sort of a cheater socket. It's actually really extremely thick walled. It's got like inch thick walls, so there's a lot of mass. So when you use it on an impact, it gets out any Honda crank bolt, especially the really stubborn ones. I feel like if you use that with the mid-torque would probably do the job. But they don't make that same kind of cheater socket for a BMW crank bolt. That was a 22mm socket. So the mid-torque is not gonna be the end-all be-all tool. I would say that if you want one impact to rule them all, you gotta go with the high torque one, because that one will never let you down. You can throw away all your pneumatic tools. It's better than pneumatic tools. Usually a pneumatic impact gun is gonna be between 700 and 1,000 foot-pounds, depending on how high you have your air pressure. That is 1,100 foot-pounds and then 1,400 foot-pounds of nut-busting torque. I think 1,100 in my mind. But even the old one was incredible. It was a killer. And that old one, which was advertised at 750 foot-pounds working torque, when Real Tool Reviews actually tested that, he found it to be substantially higher. So I gotta imagine this new one is testing even higher than what they have it advertised at. And that's usually true with Milwaukee tools. They usually are much, much better. Anyway, I'm not done with this mid-torque. The one thing that was interesting to me is when I was using it to actually remove the wheel lug nuts. The wheel lug nuts that in the junkyard, when they put on those wheel lug nuts, they use a 1/2 inch pneumatic and they just bang them on as hard as they can. They're impossible to remove with hand tools. You need to bring an impact if you want to buy a tire in the junkyard. Given that, I mean, that's usually, I don't torque my wheel lug nuts on that tight at all. I use a torque stick, or most people would use a torque wrench at home. So let's see how fast, speed-wise, I want to see the speed comparison between the mid-torque and the high torque on realistically torqued lug nuts. So let's try it on this BMW in the back of me. Whenever I torque wheel lug nuts on, I usually use a torque stick. This is a 90 foot-pound one. So this is what I use, and this is what I did use to put these on. But just to confirm, we'll get them loose and then we'll tighten them up again with the big one. It feels like this one is a little faster. I actually thought it was about the same as my old one, but it feels a little faster. So they're torqued on to 90 foot-pounds. I've tested out my torque sticks in the past, so I know they're good. So let's see what the mid-torque does. It's actually pretty fast. So let's use the torque stick on the mid-torque, see what that's like. It's pretty nice, pretty quick. So let's see what the high torque is like. I gotta say, this new high torque seems faster than the old one. We're gonna have to get the old high torque and we're gonna have to do a comparison on that. Let me go grab that. Okay, here's the old high torque. Okay, it's all in my head. I don't know, it just always seems slightly slow to me. So I would say the new high torque is equally as comparable. So which tools should you buy? I really can't answer that question for you. You're gonna have to make the decision for yourself based on all the information that I've thrown at you in this video. But I would say in general, if you want one tool to do everything, get the high torque. If you want one tool that's gonna be a great daily use, get the mid torque. Particularly if you don't already have a 3/8 inch impact, then the mid torque is gonna be a great daily use tool. If you're interested in purchasing any of these tools, check the description for links. And also stay tuned for more, because Milwaukee is going to be sending me more tools to review. They're doing a big push. They're releasing a lot of new automotive tools now, and I should be getting them to review on the channel for you guys. So stay tuned for more. And lastly, I want to say a big thank you to all you guys, all my regular viewers, all my supporters. I wouldn't be in a position to actually get tools like this for you to review on this channel if not for your support. So I want to say a big thank you to all you guys. And if you like the review, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. I'm the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.